reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
I saw tremendous rage. There were several incidences where he came into my office in a rage.
Tonight on Politics Now, Rita Reed is running for Clark County Public Administrator. Her boss is accused of murder. She talks to the 8 News Now investigators about her decision to be a source to the victim of that crime, journalist Jeff Gehrman. Selling themselves to Latino voters. We speak with voters about why some are switching parties for the upcoming election. Piles of money are being spent on Nevada's biggest races. We break down who's spending the most in Nevada's most hotly contested Senate race.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now.
Thank you for joining us on Politics Now. I'm John Langler. Right now, Clark County Public Administrator Rob Tellis is accused of murder. The victim, Review Journal investigative reporter Jeff Gehrman, who was investigating Tellis's office. Tellis was elected to oversee an office of 8 people. The number 2 person in that office is Rita Reed. She beat Tellis in a Democratic primary and is now heading to the general election. 8 News Now investigator Vanessa Murphy spoke with Reed about her decision to run and the turmoil she's endured.
After years of working through processes and trying to find a solution, and we just felt that, well, we knew an election was coming up, and he was most likely going to run for re-election, and there was a concern that he was going to be voted in to have another 4 years in that office. And I myself and others just felt that we had to do anything we could, legally, morally, to try to get the word out to the voters, to the community, that this was just a very toxic situation, and to try to remove him from office.
Did you ever feel a physical threat from him?
I was very intimidated. I think many people were. We would always remind each other, just watch your back, just keep an eye out, just be safe. So we said all the things. So we had that in us, that we were very uncomfortable. But I think it was more that, especially in the last few months since the story came out, that there might be some kind of a altercation of some sort, or there might be a verbal lashing or something from him or others in the office.
He has attacked you in that you had a motive this whole time, and because you're running for his job. Can you just address that?
I'd be happy to. Through the course of the past 3.5 years, and the past 2 years specifically, when other members of the department started being targeted more regularly and more severely, in our opinion, severely, apparently not high enough to meet the legal level of hostile work environment, but it was hostile for us to come to work. We were talking about options and talking to, making those conversations with the county and HR, different complaints, and hearing back that he was elected. There was nothing really that they could do. He was elected, he was elected, he was elected. So naturally, as 2020 was growing closer, so this is in 2021, probably late 2021, summer of 2021, we're starting to be very fearful that he's going to run for re-election, and that most likely he would prevail. He was had name recognition by that point. He was an incumbent, Democratic incumbent, and that office is historically Democrat. So we just felt that he was going to get another 4 years. And that was just something we felt we had to try to stop if we could. In fact, John Cahill had asked me to run for office before he, as he was ending his final term, and I just felt I was just good as a support. I didn't need to be the face of the office. I'm a worker bee by nature, and I felt comfortable in the role I had, and I felt that I was good there, and somebody else that really wanted to get out there with the public, be the face of the office, that would be fine.
But Jeff's stories weren't about politics.
They weren't.
About a boss.
And our office is not political. Individuals die in our community every day. We get new referrals every day to handle the property of individuals. We don't ask what party they are. We don't ask their families what party they are. We serve all the people of all parties and all races, nationalities. I mean, that's just what our office does. If a person passes away in our community, it doesn't matter. It matters who they were. But to us, we're going to handle that case no matter what.
Reed is facing Republican Patsy Brown in the general election. The public administrator's office, we should point out, does handle the estates of people who pass away when a relative or heir cannot be found. Meanwhile, though, taxpayers are still paying Rob Tellis' salary. Here's Vanessa Murphy again with more on the effort to put Tellis out of his job.
The Clark County District Attorney's Office is seeking to remove Robert Tellis from his position. Even though he's in jail accused of murder, he still is the Clark County Public Administrator, and he's still getting paid.
Do you understand the charge?
Robert Tellis appearing in court briefly Tuesday morning as the DA's office charges him in connection with the murder of Review Journal investigative journalist Jeff Gehrman. DA Steve Wolfson says his staff is also asking a judge in civil court to remove the elected official from his seat. Right now, Tellis is still getting paid his $120,000 salary.
If he can't perform, if he's neglectful in his job, he should be removed.
Tellis has been in custody since September 7th and is being held without bail until at least his next court appearance on October 26th. We tried asking Tellis if he'd resign after we learned about the DA's effort to remove him from office. He refused to sit down with us after his court appearance.
Oh, no, I'm not doing it. You don't want to do it? No, I'm sorry. Okay. No, my apologies.
Tellis will now be represented by the Clark County Public Defender's Office. Reporting in downtown Las Vegas at the Regional Justice Center, Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
A hearing on the case is now set for September 28th. Now, you heard in Vanessa's story that Tellis makes a six-figure salary, so why, you may ask, does he get a public defender that taxpayers pay for? Well, the Clark County Public Defender's Office says it is up to the court to decide whether a defendant qualifies. In other news, the Republican National Committee says Clark County has turned over poll worker information. This after they filed a lawsuit. Now, we're still waiting for Clark County to confirm this information. But the RNC was requesting the names and political affiliation of county poll workers. It argues the information is public record since poll workers are paid with tax dollars. Initially, Clark County declined, worried about harassment and privacy. The RNC requested the data because Nevada law says poll workers cannot only be from one political party. It has promised, though, not to release the information publicly. This election year, 1 in 5 Nevada voters will be Latino. That has both political parties doing whatever they can to try and earn their choice. And there has been a bit of a shift. In a recent Emerson College poll of Latino voters here in Nevada, the economy driven by inflation and housing, those were the top issues, as you see on your screen there. Voters were split on who they thought could handle inflation. More actually chose neither party than picking one. Republicans have made ground, though, with Latino voters in the past few cycles, and that includes Las Vegan Lydia Dominguez, who says she was a Democrat most of her life, but now she's switching to Republican.
It wasn't just overnight, but I didn't know I was conservative until I really looked at myself and looked at my values and said, I don't believe in this. I don't believe in abortion. I don't believe in having, to medicate your children to change genders. I don't believe in this movement anymore.
Democrats still hold a registration advantage among Latino voters. They're trying to keep it through phone banks and outreach. Now, this video you're seeing here was provided by the campaign of Senator Catherine Cortez Masto. Pablo Leos is a new citizen and construction worker. He voted for the first time in the June primary and is making phone calls for her campaign.
I understand who is on my side, who works for me, who works for the Latinos, and I think once I found a candidate that brings the whole community up and don't put it down, I think that's what makes me become a Democrat.
Latino voter registration groups predict a 5 to 6% increase in participation this November. Senator Cortez Masto's Republican challenger is Adam Laxalt, and his campaign released this new ad.
Joe Biden and Democrats have dismantled border security, causing a crisis of human trafficking, crime, and lethal opioids. Biden's allies won't admit they opened our borders.
The border is.
And again, that is an ad from the Adam Laxalt campaign. It focuses on drugs and crime and accuses Senator Cortez Masto of refusing to secure the border. Certainly lots of money is going into the Nevada Senate race. So far, incumbent Senator Cortez Masto has outspent Laxalt by a wide margin. Ad Impact reports this race has the second most money spent nationwide, $130 million so far in the general election. So let's take a closer look at who is spending that money. The Democrats' main PAC for the Senate majority, you can see here, $26.3 million. And that's followed by the main Republican PAC just below it. And then Senator Catherine Cortez Masto's campaign also has a sizable fundraising lead. Adam Laxalt's own campaign has only spent about a quarter, you can see way down here, a quarter of her total so far. Now going forward, Democrats have more ad reservations already booked in the Senate race. You see there $47 million in reservations compared to the Republicans' $27 million. Of the 31 congressional races ranked as toss-ups, Ad Impact says the most spending has been in Nevada's Congressional District 3 between Democrat Susie Lee and Republican challenger April Becker. $25 million has been spent in that race. How is the money being spent? Next on Politics Now, the latest group to request an audit at CCSD. Plus, working on the river, we ask Senator Jackie Rosen about the latest negotiations over
Switching to Nevada.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
Democrats in the Nevada legislature are joining Republican calls to audit Clark County School District. Assemblywoman and Ways and Means Committee Chair Maggie Carlton says they want to audit the district in the next session, which starts in February. Now, one of the big topics is always school funding. Back in 2019, lawmakers in Carson City reworked how schools are funded in Nevada, and they want to see if it's working. Republicans have called for an audit at CCSD for years, including gubernatorial candidate Joe Lombardo. CCSD hasn't been audited by the legislature since 2004. Falling grades across the Clark County School District were a main focus of this week's board meeting. A grading reform committee made up of local principals presented a plan to try and bring grades back up. The proposal includes a more balanced grading schedule, removing bad behavior from the grading process, and a new standards reassessment policy. There was no vote taken this week, though. You can take a closer look at this proposal at 8newsnow.com. From what to do about the Colorado River to abortion and money in politics. This week, our Washington, D.C. correspondent Basil John spoke with Senator Jackie Rosen in her D.C. office.
Are Democrats trying to come up with an alternate number that you think could get passed, or what do you think the compromise number would end up being?
You know, I support the law as it is in Nevada, and I support what's been the status quo for the last 50 years. Let's be clear that MAGA Republicans, their entire goal is to take away what's been a woman's right for 50 years. This law went into effect when I was a teenager. So my entire adult life, we've had this protection. And now suddenly my daughter has less protection than I did my whole adult life. We need to protect women's ability to choose the health care that is right for them and the privacy of their physician or provider's office. That's the bottom line.
I want to ask you about the Bureau of Reclamation, saying that the Colorado River states need to cut another 2 to 4 million acre-feet of water used by next year, but they haven't laid out which states need to cut it. Are you and the delegation talking to other states or the Bureau of Reclamation about an agreement or how much we'll have to cut?
Yeah, of course, here in the United States Senate, our senators that are part of the Colorado River Compact, we've been discussing issues. I know that the states, the governors, have been in collaboration. But what I do want to say is Nevada gets the smallest amount of water from the Colorado River, and we've done more than our share of conservation. But this is an all of the above kind of a fix. We need to collaborate and work together. I was proud that with the Inflation Reduction Act, we were able to include $4 billion, for money specifically to work on drought resiliency. What does that mean? Water is life. We need it to live. We need it to grow our food. Water is life. And so we have to be sure that we're working on every single way, not just to conserve, but with smart farming.
There's one other part of the legislation, and it would require super PACs and certain other groups to disclose the donors who contributed $10,000 or more to them during an election. Do you think that's necessary to be as clairvoyant as possible when it comes to where money comes from for some people who run?
Well, I can tell you that dark money in politics, you don't know where a lot of the money's coming from, for someone, against someone, who's talking about a subject. So anyone can come in, create these dark money super PACs, and try to influence an election, influence a vote. And so I think transparency is really important. I can tell you it'd be really important to me to end Citizens United. I've been advocating for that. I think we need to get that dark money out of politics and have more transparency. I'm all for that.
House lawmakers passed that Presidential Election Reform Act this week. The Senate still needs to vote on it. Part of it sort of cleans up potential ambiguity in the election certification process. Soon-to-be former Republican Congresswoman from Wyoming, Liz Cheney, was the guest speaker this week at the Nevada State Dinner Gala, hosted by the Vegas Chamber out in Washington, D.C. The outgoing Congresswoman talked about everything from the war in Ukraine to the upcoming election. Cheney is most recently known for her work on the January 6th committee. She also did a fireside chat with former Nevada Republican Congressman John Porter. The gala capped off a busy few days for the Vegas Chamber, where they added a new topic to the agenda, trying to save the shrinking Colorado River. Fraud accusations against former President Donald Trump. Next on Politics Now, the role his Las Vegas property plays in a lawsuit from New York's Attorney General. Plus, every time they try and kill it, it pops back up. Nevada's latest move to keep nuclear waste from Yucca Mountain.
watching Politics Now.
Once again, Nevada is trying to stop the proposed Yucca Mountain nuclear waste dump. State leaders call it a zombie-like project. Nevada Attorney General Aaron Ford is asking the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to deny a license. Yucca Mountain, as you'll know, is about 60 miles northwest of Las Vegas. Back in 1987, Congress designated it as the only site that could be considered for a nuclear waste dump. Since then, late Senator Harry Reid and other politicians in Nevada have done whatever they could to keep the plans mothballed. Right now, the U.S. has no long-term plans for managing nuclear waste. Much of the storage is done on-site at the country's 92 nuclear reactors. The recently passed Inflation Reduction Act does include incentives to create new nuclear energy plants. A major $250 million lawsuit filed this week by New York's Attorney General. The defendant, former President Trump and members of his family. They're accused of fraud. Here's Basil John once again.
We are filing a lawsuit against Donald Trump.
Wednesday, State Attorney General Letitia James announced the state of New York is suing former President Donald Trump. The civil lawsuit also includes 3 of Trump's adult children and the organization they operate.
For violating the law as part of his efforts to generate profits for himself, his family, and his company.
The lawsuit alleges the Trumps were involved in large-scale fraud, often by overvaluing assets like buildings and golf courses to deceive banks.
To lend money to the Trump organization on more favorable terms than would otherwise have been available to the company.
James says the 3-year-long investigation also found the former president and his family violated several state laws,
including falsifying business records, issuing false financial statements, insurance fraud.
The Attorney General is seeking a $250 million judgment and restrictions on future business the family can conduct in the state. In response, Donald Trump called the Attorney General a failed official whose lack of talent in the fight against crime is driving people and businesses out of the state. And Donald Trump Jr. said, quote, Letitia James doesn't care about the law. She's a Dem activist who only cares about politics. Trump's legal team added they look forward to defending their client from claims they call meritless. Reporting in Washington, I'm Basil John.
Las Vegas's Trump International Hotel and Tower was included in that lawsuit. That tower, is partly owned by Phil Ruffin. It opened back in 2008. The lawsuit specifically mentions Eric Trump talking to an appraiser who put the value of that property at $111 million. That was less than the outstanding loans at the time. The lawsuit claims the value was miscalculated between 2013 and 2016. More
Let's go places.
You're watching Politics Now.
Democratic Governor Steve Sisolak says Nevadans can now use a free digital discount card for prescription drugs. Could save up to 80% on certain medications. The Array RX card can be used to get a discount on any FDA-approved drug. State officials say there's no membership fee, there are no age or income restrictions, and citizenship is not required.
Taking care of yourself and prioritizing your health shouldn't leave you bankrupt. And I will never stop in my mission to bring more affordable health care solutions to all Nevadans.
We'll put a link to download the card at 8newsnow.com. Meanwhile, a spokeswoman for Republican gubernatorial candidate Joe Lombardo said in response, quote, under Steve Sisolak, 2 million Nevadans live in an area without enough primary care providers. And Nevada has a shortage of more than 4,000 registered nurses. This week in What to Watch, will he keep his job? Clark County Public Administrator Rob Tellis has a hearing on Clark County's effort to kick him out of office. Tellis, as you know, is accused of murdering Review Journal investigative reporter Jeff Gehrman. We will be at that hearing next Wednesday, and we will certainly let you know what happens. Also, next weekend marks 5 years since the 1 October shooting. We will carry ceremonies being held across the valley live on Channel 8 that evening and have special reports all next week as we mark 5 years since the darkest night in Las Vegas history. That'll do it for us here on Politics Now. We thank you so much for watching. All the latest political news at 8newsnow.com. We're back with you every Saturday. Thank you for watching.